Thank you, Dr. Rohit. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Chitra, and thank you, Dr. Joshi, and the team of ARC for inviting me to this webinar and giving me an opportunity to meet you all this evening. And it's indeed an elite panel, and thank you for making me part of this. The next 10 to 12 minutes, we'll look at leukocoria, how to proceed. Technically, leukocoria means that white reflex at the pupil. So a cataract will also form part of the leukocoria, and I'm sure like all of us will be able to identify a cataract from anything else which causes a white reflex. In many cases, we will be able to come to a diagnosis even before we examine the child. And as we have been taught from a medical school, history is particularly important. So what do we ask when we look at a child with leukocoria? Is it a familial leukocoria? So congenital cataract can be familial, so can be metabolic disorders. So we ask for family history and history of maternal illness. If there was a febrile illness such as a rubella during pregnancy, that can also cause cataract. And a unilateral cataract can be because of trauma post-birth. And when we look at the child, if it is unilateral or bilateral, will also give us a clue as to what is the cause for leukocoria. Usually congenital cataract is bilateral, traumatic cataract is unilateral, and age at presentation. Congenital cataract can be present at birth. So usually eyes with congenital cataract are normal in size, and 1/3 of them can have an elevated intraocular pressure. There is an exception to the rule, which is PHPV, which can be unilateral leukocoria with a small eye. So what we see here is a child with PHPV undergoing a lensectomy. What we would see is a retrolental fibrous tissue. It's a fibrovascular tissue. This tissue extends to the ciliary processes and drags the ciliary process towards the pupil. So we will have elongated ciliary processes, and this tissue will have a nodal point in the inferior nasal part of the lens, and it will connect with the stalk to the disc. So persistent hyperplastic primary vitreous starts from the disc as a stalk, goes to the inferior nasal part of the lens and extends as a fibrovascular proliferation behind the lens into the ciliary process and dragging it. So this will be a clue, and this will be a small eye and is usually unilateral. Coming on to the cause of leukocoria, which we are all concerned about, which is retinoblastoma, the history, there can be a family history. Family history in the sense like not all of them will give a history of retinoblastoma, but then like there can be history of unexplained enucleation, unexplained phthisis. But like nearly 2/3 of retinoblastoma children are sporadic and there will not be a family history. And retinoblastoma, as we all know, can be unilateral if it is sporadic and bilateral if it is germinal. And very, very rarely, children can present with leukocoria at birth if it is a germinal tumor. They can present with advanced tumor and leukocoria at birth itself. Anterior segment signs in retinoblastoma are usually in advanced retinoblastoma, as you can see here. Here we can see tumor growing in the anterior chamber. Here there is complicated cataract and a shallow anterior chamber. Here we have hyphema and neovascular glaucoma. And here we have one eye phthisis and the other eye having leukocoria. The exception to this rule is a diffuse anterior infiltrating retinoblastoma. Here, the retinoblastoma tumor is extremely small and it's very anterior, and this can present with primarily anterior segment signs. This forms about 1 to 2% of all retinoblastomas, and in little older children. Here we have a hypopion of tumor cells, and you can see large tumor cells which are floating around in this child, which had already undergone a lensectomy vitrectomy for a mistaken diagnosis of endophthalmitis, and we can see these deposits of tumor on the surface of the iris. So retinoblastoma did not fill the eye to cause leukocoria. As we can see here, when the child looks to one side, we can see these floating seeds of vitreous which cause the leukocoria. So it's just a question of light reflecting off the tumor. So when we look at the fundus of retinoblastoma, what all we can see, here we have a tumor mass which will reflect the light and cause leukocoria. What we see here is not a hazy photograph, but these are the vitreous seeds. So the vitreous seeds, meaning it's an endophytic tumor where the tumor is broken into seeds and obscuring the fundus details. Here we have an exophytic tumor. Exophytic means the tumor is growing towards the choroid. Endophytic, it's growing towards the vitreous cavity. Here we have an exudative retinal detachment. The retina is right behind the lens. This is how a retinoblastoma can present. So what do we do when we see leukocoria? Next step is to do an ultrasound in the clinic. So retinoblastoma presents as an irregular mass and multiple high reflective areas because of presence of calcium. and the calcium would not allow the sound waves to image the orbit, so you can see orbital shadowing. Here we are able to see the posterior sclera, here we are not able to because the sound is blocked, attenuated by the calcium. The additional retinal detachment and vitreous seeds are something which you can see on ultrasound. Another investigation which we do almost all the time in retinoblastoma is an MRI of the orbits and brain. On MRI, the tumor will appear as hyper-intense to the vitreous in T1 weighted image and hypo-intense to the vitreous in T2 weighted image. And an MRI will also show if there is an extraocular disease, like an optic nerve invasion, extrascleral invasion, and also will tell us if there is a trilateral retinoblastoma. That is the midline intracranial tumors which can be associated with germinal retinoblastoma, the commonest being a pineroblastoma. The next step is to examine the child under anesthesia with a dilated fundus, scleral depression, and this will give us a clue about the diagnosis. For instance, if one eye is filled with the retina is right behind the lens and we are not able to see underneath that, and if it's a germinal retinoblastoma, any small tumor which is hidden in the periphery can be seen under anesthesia. And also other diseases like, for instance, ROP, the peripheral fundus can give us if there is a sign of ROP in the other eye as well. And examination under anesthesia also allows us to document by using a wide-angle fundus imaging, and we can do a more thorough ultrasound and UBM examination under anesthesia. The most common mimic of retinoblastoma, what I come across, is Coats disease. So this is Coats disease, this is retinoblastoma. Both pretty much look the same here because the retina is right behind the lens. But if you see carefully, you can see these white lesions which are arising from the retina. And here the blood vessel is obscured. So anything which arises within the retina indicates this is indeed retinoblastoma. In contrast, we can see here the retina is not at all involved. All the deposits are under the retina here. The hallmark of Coats disease is, of course, the vascular malformations within the retina. We can see the telangiectatic vessels and bulb-like vascular malformations which result in the exudation. These are different stages of Coats disease. Here we can see macular exudation. Here we can see exudation which is just about involving the fovea. And here we see the retina is right behind the lens with subretinal precipitates which are exudation. And there is a fundus fluorescent angiogram. We have this light bulb-like lesions which we would see. So vascular malformations, as I mentioned, are the hallmark of Coats disease, but they're not pathognomonic. Here, for instance, here we have vascular malformation which seem to be suggesting a diagnosis of Coats disease, but this child actually had retinoblastoma. So retinoblastoma rarely can also have vascular malformations. So we need to make sure that we are not missing a retinoblastoma because Coats disease we would manage differently. So history, there is no family history in Coats disease, and Coats is usually unilateral, extremely rarely it can be bilateral, and they usually present a little later than retinoblastoma, 2 to 10 years of age. And there is supposed to be a male predilection, but I have seen girls being affected quite commonly, and it can present even earlier than 2 years. It can present even at 6 months of age. The vascular malformations are the hallmark, and clumped exudates can appear like mass in the subretinal space in the temporal periphery. And very, very rarely you can see calcium in Coats disease, and it's usually like plaque-like calcification, not an irregular mass-like calcification of retinoblastoma. So on imaging, you can see there is no orbital attenuation or orbital shadowing. You can see a retinal detachment with subretinal precipitates, and you can see ground glass appearance and no mass lesion which you would see in a retinoblastoma. So this is how we manage Coats disease. I do it with the transscleral conjunctival drainage. Here I'm injecting the fluid, and here using another needle I'm draining the subretinal fluid. You can see the retina going back, and these are the vascular malformations. And once we attach the retina, we additionally treat it with anti-VEGF for intravitreal steroid implant and laser photocoagulation. And these are the results we can achieve, saving the eye and sometimes saving the vision as well. Another differential diagnosis of leukocoria in children is toxocariasis. And when we look at the history, we should ask for history of exposure to puppies, because this organism is transmitted from them, and they can have a CNS disease which can result in seizure disorder. And usually toxocaria is unilateral, and it's not present at birth, it presents subsequently. So toxocaria eyes are unilateral eyes and quiet eyes. Despite the presence of vitritis, these eyes are quiet, and these children usually do not have symptoms. And what we would look at is a peripheral granuloma and a falciform fold and a posterior pole traction retinal detachment, which is what you can see here. I'm operating on this eye with a traction retinal detachment secondary to toxocaria. You can see this fibrous tissue extending from the disc towards the peripheral granuloma, and we can see this is the falciform fold. usually a peripheral granuloma, and the connecting retinal fold is what we would see in a toxocara granuloma. Another cause of white reflex is stage 5 ROP. We heard about this in the elegant lecture by Dr. Mangat Dogra. So in history, there will be history of prematurity. And ROP stage 5 is usually bilateral, but they can be asymmetric. So one eye can be stage 5, the other eye can be a much lesser stage. And ROP stage 5 doesn't occur at birth. It usually occurs subsequently. It's a progressive disease. And on imaging, we'll see no mass on imaging and traction retinal detachment. Here we can see I am dissecting this fibrovascular tissue, and what we see underneath is the traction retinal detachment, which is lifted up. So this is how we would handle an ROP. But you can obviously see it's a fibrovascular tissue just behind the lens, and it's very difficult to mistake this for retinoblastoma. And of course, there'll always be a history of prematurity as well. That's the last part of the fibrous tissue being removed. And underneath, you can see the retinal attachment, which is tractional. We usually leave this alone for it to reattach. And similarly, falciform fold and retinal dysplasia as in Norris disease can also present with leukocoria. Another cause for leukocoria is coloboma choroid. This is not a mass lesion, this is an excavation. And we will see this reflecting off the light can present as a leukocoria. And this can be associated with retinal detachment. That is what I'm operating here. And coloboma choroid is usually bilateral, and you will see the eyes to be small as well, and they may be associated with iris coloboma, as you can see here. This is an iris coloboma, and a coloboma with the lens can also be there. There can be a few tumors which mimic retinoblastoma. This is an astrocytic hamartoma. They are dull yellow in color. They can be at the disc or elsewhere. They are not associated with any retinal detachment, dilated vessels, or vitreous seeds. And they may sometimes have calcium. But how do you identify them? They're usually present in tuberous sclerosis. So you see adenoma sebaceum here, a complicated cataract, and these children may have history of epilepsy as well. Another tumor which can be there in children, a little older children, is medulloepithelioma. This is a cystic lesion which arises from the ciliary body, not from the retina. This can be associated with the retinal fibrovascular membrane, and usually does not, and is usually unilateral. So here we have this ciliary body tumor which we have resected. You can see this notch in the lens. Endophthalmitis is also a differential diagnosis of retinoblastoma or leukocoria, but I would look at it this way. Retinoblastoma sometimes can be mistaken as endophthalmitis, and there have been instances where we have gone inside and done a vitrectomy. So that's to be avoided. So in endophthalmitis, there'll be history of trauma, septicemia, and usually signs of congestion, signs of inflammation such as second corneal congestion, conjunctival congestion, and there'll be shifting hypopyon. In the retinoblastoma, the hypopyon does not shift easily because it's composed of larger, thicker cells, and there can be signs of perforation, and there's usually no mass, maybe a granuloma. For instance, this is an eye which has got retinoblastoma with complete vitreous seeds, which mimics endophthalmitis. You can see how quiet the eye is. This is how you differentiate an endophthalmitis from a retinoblastoma. To summarize, the approach to leukocoria, history, laterality, and aged presentation give us clues as to what could be the cause of leukocoria. Look for anti-segment signs, which are usually not there in early retinoblastoma, except in diffuse infiltrating retinoblastoma. Presence of an irregular mass and calcium, with or without calcium, is retinoblastoma. Presence of vascular malformations, fibrovascular membranes, no mass is not retinoblastoma. Thank you very much. And I have not gone into the management of retinoblastoma. If any of you are keen on going through the complete lecture about retinoblastoma, there is one lecture which is in the YouTube channel of Shankara Academy of Vision, and this is the link to it. Thank you very much.